listening to the Art of Homeschooling podcast, where we help parents cultivate creativity and connection at home. I'm your host, Jean Miller, and here on this podcast, you'll find stories and inspiration to bring you the confidence you need to make homeschooling work for your family. Let's begin. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode here at the Art of Homeschooling podcast. I'm so excited for this topic today because honestly, this is such a simple activity to add to your daily rhythm that reaps huge rewards. Today, we're talking all about mealtime blessings for families, and specifically, the power of ritual, as well as where you might find beautiful blessings, and I'll even share some of our family favorites. Before we get there, though, I wanted to share with you a new podcast review I just received from Bluebirdie42. They said, "I started homeschooling because it felt right for my family. I have continued homeschooling because of the support I receive through Jean's words. This podcast feels like a refuge. I am able to focus and reset with her guidance." Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Bluebirdie. This means the world to me, and it's really why I do what I do. So thank you. And if you, dear listener, want to rate and review the podcast, you can do that right at this link, artofhomeschooling.com/review the podcast. I would so appreciate it because it really helps other parents and homeschoolers to find this show. All right, now let's talk about mealtime blessings. So before I get too far into this, though, I do want to let you know that we created a collection, a special printable for you to go along with today's episode. So it's a collection of blessings that you might want to bring to your family. I'm really pleased to offer this, and you can find it over on the show notes. So just go to artofhomeschooling.com/episode 64. Here we go. Mealtime blessings for families. All right. I honestly think that this is one of the very easiest ways to add rhythm to your daily life. And we all know that our children have less stress, feel more secure when they know what to expect, when they feel safe and held by the adults around them, right? So this is the power of daily rhythm, that it's that consistent flow of activities that carry us through the day, times when we know what's going to happen, what's going to come next. So when you add more rhythm to your day, when you want to add more rhythm to your day, I want you just to think of starting with mealtime blessings. So let's just acknowledge that life can get a bit out of sync sometimes, right? It can be a little chaotic, especially when our children are really young. Like right now, perhaps. As this episode airs, it's the first week in January 2022, right after the holidays and at the start of a new year. Now, for most of us, this time of year means that we can feel the pull, right, to get back into a groove with our daily rhythm and our lives in general. We've perhaps had a holiday break. We've had maybe a lot going on, a lot of activities, a lot of downtime maybe. And mealtimes are a really great starting point to get back into a routine. And I always, whenever we're getting back to our homeschooling in particular, whether it's the beginning of a new homeschool year or right after the holidays, I like to begin to layer in the rhythm. And starting with meal times is a really simple and good place to start. So focus on one thing at a time. Meal times can be considered anchor points. I like to call them anchor points throughout our day, which are really a time when we come together and connect, times that we can count on being together as a family. Other parts of the day, we may go our separate ways or do that sort of parallel play of each being involved in our own activities. But when we come back together, we can rediscover that sense of like the shelter of each other. Anchor points are a great place to start after the holidays. So think of meal times, bedtimes, and beginning with this, as I said, at any time of year when life has been, when you've had a different rhythm, right? When you haven't had that sort of steady, regular routine going on. I think I first heard about this idea of anchor points in my Simplicity Parenting coach training. But I really just want to acknowledge that honoring these anchor points in some fashion is really meaningful. So today we're talking specifically about adding a blessing to these anchor points. The idea of anchor points, it came out of my Simplicity Parenting coach training, and that training is really around the work of Kim John Payne. His first book, Simplicity Parenting, he writes a lot, like I highly recommend this book, but he writes a lot about rhythm and daily rhythm and the importance of it to children and family life. Here is a quote from the book about daily rhythm. He says, "Relationships are often built in the intervals, the spaces between activities when nothing much is going on." So I love this idea that we create the time and space to be together, but then we kind of let go of what's going to happen. And we don't have any big agenda, right? We just want to make sure that this togetherness happens. So don't feel like this needs to take a lot of planning or effort. Keep it really simple and just find a few favorite blessings to add to your day. I'm a big supporter of family dinners, a time when everybody can come together at the end of the day and reconnect and share a bit, perhaps, from their day. Now, I know in reality, meal times are not always peaceful. When my boys were little, they were pretty raucous, right? But adding a simple ritual like a mealtime blessing can actually help calm the atmosphere down. Other little ritual items can be added too if you want to. If you have the energy to, these can help create a special atmosphere. So you might want to add a tablecloth, a candle, some flowers, even invite everyone to pitch in a little bit with the meal. It can bring a calming energy. My suggestion, though, is to just start with a mealtime blessing because it's so simple and so easy and so doable. That's what we like around here. Doable, simple, and inspiring. So all you need to do is find one or two or three blessings that you really like and bring them to the table, literally and figuratively, bring them to the table. You'll eventually learn these blessings or songs by heart if you stick with this consistently. A few more thoughts about dinner time. The family dinner is really more than a meal. Think of it that way. It's a time to come together, to share, connect, strengthen family bonds, really. There's even research that shows that the more often families eat together, the more likely it is that children will eat healthy foods. And the less likely it is that they will engage in troubling behaviors like smoking or drinking or drugs. The less likely it is they'll suffer from depression. It's pretty compelling, huh? So check out, if you're interested in exploring this further, go check out the Family Dinner Project because it has not only you can access some of this research, but also ideas for your family dinner. So in my family, we started with mealtime blessings when my children were fairly young. Sometimes we would light a candle, sometimes not, but it was a pause. It was a big pause toward the end of the day. We would take hands, sit down around the table, take hands, close our eyes, and recite a blessing or sing a song. Now, I remember some nights when life seemed particularly chaotic or the kids were really out of sorts. And I remember I would think, this is ridiculous, right? Why am I trying to pull this off? But then I'd stick to it and we would have just this moment of peace. And then I realized that just experiencing that feeling of calm and peace and togetherness then allowed me to recognize it at other times of the day and helped it to spread through the day, through our days. And now, all these years later, when my kids are now grown, when we get together, we will still gather around the table and say a blessing, all holding hands together. And I now know it was worth it, right? It was worth the effort I made to keep this ritual going through all these years. So here are a few of our family's favorite mealtime blessings. And don't forget, as I said, to check out the show notes for more blessings. All right, when my kids were really young, this one was our favorite. Earth that gives to us this food, sun that makes it ripe and good. Dear earth, dear sun, by whom we live, our loving thanks to you we give. And then as they grew, this blessing became our favorite and is actually still our go-to blessing to this day. Oftentimes, Brian and I will even say this when it's just the two of us. God, we thank you for this food, for rest and home and all things good, for wind and rain and sun above, and most of all, for those we love. Oh, blessing our food with a favorite mealtime blessing, a song or a verse before we eat, it can become a cherished tradition in so many ways. And really not just for our children. Blessing our food is just as meaningful for us as adults. This simple ritual gives us just a moment to calm our minds and pause before we eat. We can quiet our thoughts and turn inward for just a few moments. This is a great way to be more mindful of what we eat and how we eat, and to think about where our food comes from. And most of all, to be grateful. So keep it simple. Recite a poem, sing a song, say a blessing. No matter your spiritual or religious beliefs, this is a lovely time to just get quiet for a few minutes and feel that sense of gratitude, just the gratitude pouring through your whole being. If you want to add a bit more, you could, during the meal, go around the table and have some sharing time. One way to do this is called rose, thorn, bud. In our family, we did this once a week, not even always once a week, but we tried to do this on Friday nights, not every single night, but some families enjoy doing this daily. You get to decide for your family. So the way rose, thorn, bud works is that each person shares a rose, a good thing from their day or week, and then a thorn, a challenging thing that might have happened, and then a bud, something that they're looking forward to today or tomorrow or in the week ahead. Or you could just go around and invite everybody to share something from their day. So there you have it. Favorite mealtime blessings for families. I'm curious, do you have a favorite mealtime blessing? Are you wanting to bring this ritual into your home? Or perhaps you just want to learn some new ones, some new songs and blessings for your meals. If you already engage in this activity at mealtime, then consider perhaps bedtime or other anchor points throughout your day that you might bring a little more ritual to. So remember, as a special bonus for this episode, I've created a printable for you of different mealtime blessings. And you can find the download over on the show notes at artofhomeschooling.com/episode 64. If you want to explore expanding your blessing repertoire, then be sure to grab that printable. And also in the show notes, I have a few other suggested resources for you. One is a particularly wonderful little book that is great if you want to explore blessings from different cultures. It's a little book called A Grateful Heart: Daily Blessings for the Evening Meal from Buddha to the Beatles. And you can also find a link to that book in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining in today, and many blessings to you and your family. That's all for today, my friend. But here's what I want you to remember. Rather than perfection, let's focus on connection. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Art of Homeschooling podcast.